Before we boot up Master Duel, though, we also have an announcement for some new cards from Alliance Insight, and they've been saving up some bangers, I'm guessing, because this is another wave of Sinful spoil support over here. I saw some people in chat earlier talking about how it would be the last wave of Sinful spoil support because the lore ends here. I'm not too deep into the lore, so I don't actually know. But yeah, the battle for the Sinful spoils reaches its climax. It's also kind of hinted at in the title here that it maybe is the last wave of support for now. Either way, we have Diabellstar the Sin Adjudicator, so it looks like kind of Diabellstar's final form here. A Dark Fiend, level 8, 2500 attack, 2100 defense. This card is always treated as a Sinful spoils card. You can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. You can banish a spell and a trap from your hand and or graveyard. Special summon this card from your hand or graveyard. Okay. Quick effect, you can pay half your life points, then target a card your opponent controls, destroy it, then if another Diabell monster card is on the field, you can special summon an illusion or spellcaster tuner synchro monster from your extra deck. This feels like a solid card without being too crazy, which I'm gonna be honest with you, that's what I'm hoping for with these cards, kind of. Like I'm hoping that they can be good cards, but I'm hoping that they don't specifically do super well. Like I don't want I don't want them to revive Snake Eye, basically, right? I'm happy that Snake Eye is where it is right now. I think if this goes in the direction of White Forest support, Azamina support, I'm okay with it. Yeah, so that's kind of like where I'm at with these kind of cards. Having to banish a trap is not trivial, I think, depending on what other cards we have here. I mean, at least so far, these decks have not been running a lot of traps. And of course, White Forest does have a trap card, for example, where like you don't want to banish that trap card, right? Like you want to keep your trap card around. So yeah. Wanted can recycle banished Sinful spoils. I mean, yeah, I understand that. Like, but it's still like you have to find a way to search this card and set up a spell and a trap in a hand or graveyard to summon it, and then you still have to like, you're just passing turn with this card on the field, and it's a pop. And then if you have another Diabell on the board, which keep in mind, the decks that we're playing so far are not really incentivized to keep other Diabells on the board, except for the Diabell Synchro 8. That's one that you would have to keep on the board. But yeah, it's not bad at all. It's a good card. I don't think it's broken though. I don't think it's broken. And here we have the final form of Diabellze. Diabellze the White Witch, which is a level 8 illusion, 25/21, is always treated as a White Forest card. You can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. You can send a spell or trap from your hand or field to the graveyard. Special summon this card from your hand. If this card is normal or special, you can send a Sinful Spoils or Diabell card from your deck to the graveyard. Okay, where are all the people... Where are all the people that said banning original Sinful Spoils over Flamberge was a bad decision? I think now everyone's hella happy that they banned original Sinful Spoils and not Flamberge. I mean, to be fair, at the time where people complained about original over Flamberge, this card wasn't out yet, and like, you know, they couldn't have known that. But in the context of original Sinful Spoils being legal, this card is completely absurd. Without original Sinful Spoils legal, we'll have to wait and see like what you're sending with this card, right? Because of course, a foolish effect is pretty powerful, but what are you sending, right? Like, what are you doing? You can send this one, I guess, because it is treated as a Sinful Spoil card, yeah. So if you have a spell and a trap in rotation, you can send the Diabellstar to set it up. A monster you control cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects while you control 2 or more Diabell monsters. Okay, so these new cards definitely try to incentivize you to keep Diabell on the board, which I think is a good, like, that's a good thing design-wise, because A, it discourages you from just spamming infinite extra deck monsters, and the second thing, just like from a feeling, like one thing I never liked about the Diabellstar lore was how one of its main monsters, Diabellstar, was like on the field for like 2 seconds. You just summon Diabellstar and then you send it for OSS as quickly as possible. The White Forest level 8 Synchro is also a Diabell monster. I know, I mentioned that like a couple of minutes ago. I'm aware of that, but it's not as trivial to summon a level 8 Synchro monster and these 2 monsters. At least from the cards that we're seeing here. Like, those are multiple card combos, I'm pretty sure, without original Sinful spoils in the mix. Yeah. Azamina. Oh, the card is just called Azamina? Okay. Illusion Fusion, level 12, 4K, 4K. Queen of the Azamina, plus a fusion or sync. What's Queen of the Azamina? Queen of the Azamina. Oh, that's a Supreme Darkness card. That's why I'm not familiar. I forgot. This card's always treated as a Sinful spoil if it's sent to the graveyard. Ah, okay, wait. This is also, this is pretty good context for this card. Because this card exists. If this card is sent to the graveyard... Oh no, from hand or field. Never mind, I chatted. You can special summon this card when your Azamina or White Forest monster destroys an opponent's monster by battle. You can target a Sinful spoil, spell trap in your grave, add to your hand. Okay, this card's not very good. I mean, it's not terrible. It's not terrible, but it's also not crazy. And this... Okay. So this requires that one, plus a fusion or synchro. Must be either fusion summoned or special summoned by tributing a sacred or sanct Azamina you control. That's also in Supreme Darkness, I think. Hold up. Yeah, that's that one, the big fusion. Okay. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good upgrade to this, right? Because you're gonna summon this, and then you're gonna use its quick effect to summon another Azamina monster, and then you can just tribute it off for this. And you can even tribute a monster your opponent controls with it, going second. Cannot be destroyed by card effects. Each time your opponent activates a card or effect, all monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack when it resolves. Your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters with 0 attack. Okay, the effect of this card is not crazy, I think. It's more about the ability to tribute your opponent's face-up monster going second. Right? It's more about just being a free, quote-unquote, contact fusion by tributing this thing and your opponent's monster, which is a neat option if you have the room for it, but it's not... None of this is crazy, which is a good thing probably with what we've been through with the Diabellstar lore. Snake Eyes Execute Dragon. Okay, that's scary. Snake Eyes card. Level 12 Synchro. Generic. You can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. During the main phase quick effect, you can target a face-up monster on the field or in the graveyard, place it face-up in its owner's spell trap zone as a continuous spell. Also, this card cannot use this effect next turn. During the battle phase quick effect, you can target 2 cards on the field, 1 monster and a continuous spell, destroy them. This card's good, but it's not like... This doesn't feel like Snake Eye support in that sense. You know, it feels like a Snake Eye card because of what it does, but it doesn't feel like it's something that fits perfectly into Snake Eyes, right? This is just a good generic level 12 synchro. You can play this anywhere where you can make a level 12 synchro because it's just, that's a really powerful effect. So you just like, you summon this thing, and then you, on your opponent's turn, you just put quick effect, put a monster into the spell trap zone, which is really strong removal. That's really, really strong removal. And then it even gives you a battle phase, like, interruption as well, which is not the broken part about this card, but it's a nice bonus, right? It makes it hard to run over. And in case you... It's very funny because it doesn't have to be your continuous spell. If your opponent is playing continuous spells, you can just completely destroy them in the battle phase, right? Like if you're playing against, I don't know, you're playing against the Bestials and they have Branded Regained, you can just go to the battle phase and go like, yeah, execute dragon, effect, destroy your Regained and your monster. Or any other deck with continuous spells for that matter, right? Like King Sarcophagus, you name it, Voiceless Voice, Nightmare Pain, all that stuff, right? You just pop it. And a monster. This is a very strong generic card. This is a very, very strong generic level 12 monster. Of course, it has added synergy theoretically in a Snake Eye deck. If you can like place your Snake Eye Diabellstar back into your Spell and Trap Zone or something. But I think this is much better as like a generic tool for even like Centurion, or you can probably like White Forest can also make it, right? White Forest can also make that. We have Mystic Mystery of the White Forest. Oh, speaking of White Forest, okay, level 4 Illusion Synchro Tuner. Oh, that means Diabellze can summon this, right? Because it's a level 4 Synchro Tuner. Generic, you can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. If this card is special summoned, you can target 2 White Forest monsters in your graveyard, place them face up in their owner's spell and trap zone as continuous spells. During your opponent's main phase quick effect, you can activate this effect immediately after it resolves Synchro Summon. Interesting. This is... correct me if I'm wrong, this feels like the first one that, for White Forest, that puts the monsters into the spell trap zones. Right? That's not usually what White Forest does, but it's pretty good for White Forest if you think about it in the long term. Because you can send those monsters that you put into your spell trap zone, you can send them for cost later, right? You can send them for LZ, for Stellar, for Rushia to draw, for your Synchro Monsters effects as cost. This is a level 4 tuner, so what that means is if you make Diabellze, which is the level 8 Synchro, on your opponent's turn, you can summon this off of it, put 2 White Forests from your graveyard into your spell trap zone, and then you can make this thing, the Execute Dragon, and then you will have, you can remove your opponent's monster by pushing it back, and then you can also use the effect to destroy in their battle phase. It's a neat option. Of course, White Forest can't really summon it outside of Diabell's effect, right? Like, the White Forest does not have the means usually to summon a level 4 Synchro, because they've got level 4 Tuner and level 2 Non-Tuner. That doesn't add up. But, as an option to summon off of Diabellze, it seems pretty good. The only thing that is slightly weird about this is that technically all of the White Forest monsters during your opponent's turn, they want to be in your graveyard, right? Think of Rushia's and Sylvie's effects, quick effects, to return a White Forest Synchro and then summon themselves out, right? This is something you would like to have in the graveyard. You don't want to put them into your spell trap zone, actually. And the same is true for Stellar and LZ, because they have effects where they return from the graveyard if something happens. So, a little counterintuitive in some ways, but it does make sense, and it's a pretty good card in a grind game with White Forest, which is that's perfect for me if you ask me. I like that kind of design. It doesn't feel like it's super broken, but it has some neat applications. I like this a lot. This is pretty neat. We have Philias Diabell, normal spell card. You can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. Add a level 8 or higher Diabell monster from your deck to your hand, or if only your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon it instead. Okay, so this is pretty good. It specifically excludes the OG Diabellstar, the level 7 one, which makes it a lot weaker. But if you ever play a deck where you where you play these cards over here, the Diabellstar the Sin Adjudicator, Diabellze the White Witch, or even some of the other level 8, I think like stuff like this is... Oh, this is not a Diabell card. Okay, so if you play those cards and you want to open with them, then this is a good card, right? If this card becomes banished, you can make all Diabell monsters you control gain 500 attack. Okay, that's a almost irrelevant secondary effect. So it's mostly a Rhoda that can be a little bit better going second, which is nice. But because it excludes Diabellstar, like the OG Diabellstar, that makes it a little bit weaker. Oh yeah, Snake Eye Diabellstar is technically a level 8, right? That you, but like, add that card was considered a brick, right? Snake Eye Diabellstar is not something you would like to search, I don't think, most of the time. But, yeah. It's a chain block for the Diabellstar on summon effect, so it's kind of useful. That's true, yeah, you could banish it as cost to summon this. But what are you trying to chain block? Because this doesn't trigger anything. This does not have a trigger effect, so... Yeah. Curse of Diabell. This is okay, we get 2 trap cards here, which I think is important. Because I was wondering, like, what kind of trap cards would you be wanting to banish for Diabellstar the Sin Adjudicator? Because so far, you don't play many trap cards in these decks, and if you do, they are not good when banished. Like cards like Woes of the White Forest or something like that, or even Silvera, the very early Diabellstar trap, you would want to keep those cards around. You don't want to banish them. So... let's see what these do. Curse of Diabell, normal trap. You can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. If you control 2 or more Diabell monsters, send a monster you control to the graveyard. Destroy all face-up cards your opponent controls. This is obviously a very powerful effect if you could pull it off. But for a trap card, this feels very situational. It feels very situational because basically what this card reads like is like, oh, if your deck completely functions already, you can win even more. Yeah, well, we'll see. If this card is sent to the graveyard or banished from the hand or deck, you can add a Diabell spell or trap from your deck to your hand, except Curse of Diabell. Oh, you know what? I think the second effect is the one that's nice here. That's what we're talking. Now, of course, Diabell spell trap, you don't usually play that many so far. But Philias Diabell is another one. They also had, in Supreme Darkness, there's also a couple of them. Remember, I thought their names were very funny because they were called like Play the Diabell and Like the Diabell, I think. Those would also be options. This is good. Because this means this is a phenomenal send for Diabellstar. It's a phenomenal card to pay the cost with on White Forest cards. That sort of deal. And it's also a phenomenal banish for the Adjudicator. This is why this card is good. And then the first effect, I'm assuming most of the time, is going to be like a nice to have kind of thing. Like if you have a really good hand that can afford to just either search this card or doesn't need to send it for cost for everything because your hand is just that good, you can keep it around as an extra disruption. But that kind of flexibility is nice, right? Like you draw this in your White Forest Diabellstar deck, for example, and you get to decide, like, am I gonna pitch it for my White Forest cards as a free send? Or am I gonna keep it around to use the first effect? And having that flexibility in a card is very good. So that's pretty good. Yeah. It's like the Fiendsmith trap, good graveyard effect, but decent on-field effect if you want. Kind of like that, but in a way even better, because for the Fiendsmith trap, you are correct. It is mostly used for its graveyard effect, and the on-field effect happens very rarely, but if it does, it's really powerful. So it's kind of like that with this card. The difference is the archetype that this card is in, right? Because Fiendsmith in Paradise is being played in a lot of Fiendsmith decks. You don't really have a way to discard it unless you draw it specifically with Fiendsmith tracked. But discarding Fiendsmith in Paradise for Fiendsmith Tract is not great because then you're not discarding Lurry, right? So you're not using Tract as an extender in that sense, right? With this card, it's in an archetype that's full of effects with that send it to the graveyard, right? You got Diabellstar, you got White Forest, you got all kinds of cards that send for cost, that require you to have spell traps to send for cost. So this card is just like, this card is perfect for that sort of scenario. So this is really good. And then we have Sinless Sinful Spoils. Continuous trap card. You can only use the first effect of this card's name once per turn. Activate one of these effects. Either target a Diabell monster in grave or banishment, discard a card if you do special summon that monster, or target a face-up monster card in your spell trap zone, special summon it. This is a neat card to have around. Unfortunately, I feel like while those cards are nice and would certainly be good in a grind game, I feel like it does too little to actually be included. But I don't know. 07 Diabell. See, this is the thing. Even if I look at these images, I never understand what's going on. I never... How do you guys know that Diabell is gone? I don't know how that works. Anyways, that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to tell you if the effect is good or not. I wish this card had an effect if it's sent to graveyard for cost. Like if this card had something like, if this card is sent to grave or banishment from hand or deck, then you could set it, but banish it when it leaves the field, kind of thing. That I think then it'd be good enough. The fact that whenever you draw this card, you cannot send it for your White Forests, I think that's what makes it a little too weak. But yeah. Okay, overall, I am relieved with this wave because this mostly feels like stuff that goes into White Forest and Azamina decks, which is precisely what I've been asking for, right? Like, I've been saying, like, please stop making stuff that synergizes with Snake Eye and Snake Eye only. Give me more stuff for Azamina and White Forest, and this is what this is, for the most part. I think these cards are not too broken. These cards are not crazy. These cards are just solid cards. A lot of them are very solid. They're not bad cards. Especially the Synchro 12 is a very good generic tool as well. But this is neat. I think this is all right. I mean, look, I'll take anything over just another broken tier 0 wave of Snake Eye support. All right, like that's fine by me. Goblin Bikers Forgotten. Yeah, I don't know what you want me to tell you. If you're a Goblin Biker fan, you've chosen by far the least loved archetype out of the Diabellstar lore. All right, like, hey, it is what it is. Unfortunate.